Did you ever imagine that the phone book of the internet would eventually become one of the most critical security elements?
I don't think I did. Certainly for the first, I don't know, 20 odd years of DNS's history, I didn't foresee that. It took smarter people like Paul Vixie and David Olovich to figure that out.
Wow, I have not heard that name, David Ulevich, for some time. But yes, I know that David and Paul were very early on, and before it was called Protective DNS, when response policy zones were first conceived of. Uh, and you were right in it, right at the beginning.
Yeah, I was at Infoblox from 2003 on. So in 2010, when Paul and Vernon introduced the idea of response policy zones, we had kind of a block list functionality in our products at Infoblox. And in order to populate the block list, you needed to basically upload like a CSV or something to the Infoblox grid, which was a pretty clumsy way of handling things. And so when I read about response policy zones, I thought, wow, this is so much better than what we're doing currently. And I happened to be on an interim basis managing the product organization at Infoblox at that time. So I dispatched one of my product managers, Pierre Asani, to write a product requirements definition for including support for RPZs in the product. And I think we were the first EDI vendor to actually have support for them.
That is really cool. And looking back, I can't imagine us being without that as a security layer. We often say that protective DNS now needs to be the first and last defense layer, with other stuff in between in many cases. But and that brings me to a point of honest networking. In the early days, DNS was implicitly trusted, right? Like you were just expecting that there was no abuse. There was just, hey, this is my question. This is the answer that I got. It was implicitly trusted, but that rapidly changed. How do you now, looking back, how do you now see that progression happening? Did it happen as fast as it should have?
I would say it's probably not even complete. I've spent a lot of time out there sort of preaching the gospel of protective DNS. And I would say that there are a lot of organizations that run DNS infrastructure and simply run it, we'd say, wide open, right? Without any particular care for whether or not a domain name being looked up is malicious or might be suspicious or what have you. So I think the job's not done yet.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I learned from you guys and from a variety of protective DNS proponents, again, long before it was called protective DNS, was this idea of the first signal. And was that something that was always obvious to you? Like, how did you get started where this area of DNS became a topic of interest for you?
Well, um, I think it was probably not long after we started to add RPZ functionality to Infoblox's products, and shortly after that, we realized, gosh, we're going to have some sort of a feed to provide customers who use this functionality. It's not that useful in and of itself. I mean, it is kind of handy as kind of a DNS administrator's Swiss Army knife, if you will, for patching over things like somebody messes up a named IP address mapping on the internet. You can kind of spackle around it using RPZ. But we saw the need for a threat feed to be able to provide that to customers using RPZs, and we went looking for partners, and that I think led me to a company called Internet Identity, and a friend of mine, Rod Rasmussen, who was the chief technology officer of Internet Identity, which Infoblox later purchased.